Now you dare enter my realm.
Hello there everyone. This time I wanted to make something very iconic from the Warcraft universe. And I also felt like trying to use LED lights. The Dark Portal felt like a perfect combination of those two things. I started out by taking a screenshot in game to measure the proportions and then drew them up on a paper. Since the lights, battery and cords would be inside the sculpture, I had to plan how everything would be placed first. I decided to fit the battery into the base of the sculpture together with a switch in the back, and then let the cords run up through the pillars of the portal and into the top part. From there I would have the LED lights hang down behind the portal. As usual, I started out with a very rough base made of metal wire. I made a space inside for the battery pack. I then covered it with aluminium foil. This time I also used some masking tape to make the foil stay where I wanted it. I was unsure what would happen when I put it in the oven, but it worked for me, so I might keep doing that in the future. After finishing the base layer of clay, I hardened it in the oven to get a solid surface to work from. I kept adding clay on the hardened surface and worked towards the shape I wanted. Then I started adding detail to give it a rough and stony look. I hardened it again and kept building upwards. For the pillars, I started out by making spirals out of metal wire and then adding foil and a base layer of clay that I hardened. I used that as a core for the pillars. I added more clay and gradually made it more detailed, giving it the same stony look as the bottom part of the sculpture. Then I hardened everything to have a solid point to work from. I like to think of this as kind of a save point, where you can't destroy your previous work, unless you're really clumsy. I used the exact same process for the upper part. I did, however, leave a hole in the back to be able to pull the cords through the inside. I covered it up with a hatch later. Before adding detail, I wanted to finish the two figures in front of the pillars. Since the top part goes behind their heads, it was easier to do it in that order. Making the two guardian figures look as similar as possible was one of the most critical parts to making this sculpture look good. I made them at the same time, making sure to add or adjust anything I did to one of them to the other one too. I was actually quite happy with the end result. I hardened the figures and then made the disc that would become the portal itself. I cut it out from a piece of transparent thick plastic and sanded it to the shape that I wanted. Then I moved on to finishing the top part. I put some foil where the top would touch the bottom part, just so that they wouldn't stick together during hardening. Once again I added detail and tried to make it look like a big, rugged stone block. I sculpted the snake that would sit in the center of the top part and hardened it separately. I soldered 3 LED lights together and attached a light switch in the hatch in the back. Before installing the quartz, I wanted to make sure to finish most of the painting. I figured that the quartz would mostly be in the way if I put them in first. The clay's color was only slightly lighter than I wanted as the color of the finished sculpture, so I added a few thin layers of darker grey paint. That also gave the surface some lighter and darker parts, which made it look more natural. I painted the wooden base with a burnt red color to make it look like Blasted Land's ground in-game. I also wanted to give the effect of the sand having blown up on the portal surfaces and also being dragged onto the walkway by the people going up the ramp and into the outlines. I therefore used the same color and very loosely brushed it over parts of the surface. I painted the portal disc dark green. The base felt very empty with only the portal on it, so I decided to make some rocks surrounding it. I covered everything with a thicker layer of paint. Finally, I soldered the cords to the switch and the battery and pulled the cords through the sculpture. When everything was in place, I glued the sculpture to the base. To make sure that most of the light was emitted towards the portal, I used a very small plastic can with a lid to reflect the light in one direction. I cut a small hole for the cord and then painted the inside except the lid black and then covered it in foil, which made sure all the light was reflected in the direction I wanted. The black paint was mostly so that it wouldn't look horrible from the back. I gave the ground a more ground-like look by adding random spots of shifting colors and shadows. This is the biggest sculpture I've made so far and easily the one I used the most clay for. I am happy with the result, and I would also like to hear what you think and what you would like me to make in the future. If you have any opinion about the length of the videos or the format in general, I would love to hear that too. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next video.